Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you, all of you, to be part of this afternoon session of ours. Thank you, International Museum Expo. I think this is an amazing initiative started by Ministry of Culture. Um, Museum today is a narrative and a rich heritage and tradition that we enjoy today, and been enjoyed for centuries over. And if you can bring that together and create a narrative, put forward in front of all of you, that's what we are here about. One of the critical things in museum is designing uh, the experience for museum. And we're going to talk about one of the two, which is lighting, and how lighting can create experience around narratives that museum is all about, how audiences interact, and how audiences as a spectator interact with museum. With me, I have Kishore Shetty, who's the country head of Elco. It's a German company, one of the leading lighting companies which specializes in museum and lighting museums world over. I have Loj Barwana with me, who's down from Singapore. He heads lighting design with Elco for over 25 years, and they both going to take you through the nuances of design of lighting design for museums. My name is Amit Gupta. I'm a managing director of Reasonably, an integrated lighting solution company. I'm also editor-in-chief of STIR, Art, Architecture and Design publication. But before we start, we're going to do a quick 30-second exercise. You have bags on the chair, and there's a piece of paper and a pen inside. If you can take out a piece of paper and a pen, we're going to do a 30-second exercise. We're going to time it precisely 30 seconds. And we're going to request you to draw light on piece of paper. Can you all please take out a piece of paper and pen and draw light? And we see this is an exercise which is very, very important, especially for architecture and design community and anybody who is a harbinger of museums today, on what light means. If I can request you, just draw light on piece of paper. Your time starts now. We're going to time 30 seconds.
Hello.
All right, we can go down and see what everybody's drawn. Okay, time out. Quickly, this is an exercise. We all know a master architect, Lloyd Kahn. When Lloyd Kahn was 19-year-old, he gave this exercise to himself to draw light, and he's a master of creating architecture spaces where light becomes an amazing tool. Natural light and artificial light becomes an amazing tool. Now, I've looked around. Most of you, when you're given an exercise to draw light, you start drawing either a sunlight or a beam of ray or a lamp. You know what Lloyd Kahn did, which I see you doing it, man, very beautifully. Where Lloyd Kahn took a plain piece of white paper and dropped a blotch of black ink on the corner of paper. And he says, that's darkness, and this is light. So darkness is extremely relevant for lighting. I'm going to now let the stage take over by Elco. Just to tell you, Elco has done museums like Guggenheim, MoMA, you name a museum in the world, it's lit by Elco. Recently, since last 15 years, have done many museums in the country, from Lalit Kala, Chhatrapati Shivaji, private museums like Nada, and many more. Over to you, Kishore and Elco. Welcome, Lois. Yeah.
Thank you, Amit. Everybody can hear me? Yes, I think we are okay. From my side as well, thank you very much for attending to this masterclass of lighting design for museums. Very happy to be here. We will have in this presentation the agenda is very simple actually. Many people understand light as a very something complex, and in reality, it's something extremely simple. So we will talk about, and I will introduce to you what is the meaning of light, and we will take that interpretation and we will put it in what we call the language of the light. And after that, my colleague Kishore will take over and we will talk about specific lighting for museums. At the end of this masterclass, we will have an opportunity to answer any questions that you may have. And I'm sure, and I hope at the same time, that you will have a lot of questions because the introduction to this theme is, I'm sure you will really love it. Okay, let's start with the exercise that actually Amit just did with you. And questioners in general, what is really light? Light is a kind of energy, and we are surrounded, the complete world is surrounded with light, but only a very small part of it are we able to see it with our human eyes. So basically, 380 to 700 nanometers, we are able to notice, and of course, with this becomes visible. The moment it's rain and sun, you can see a rainbow. So basically, in that moment, you can realize that light is part of a huge electromagnetic wave. So this electromagnetic wave is at the same time good, but at the same time could be a little bit dangerous for the human being. If we go below 380 nanometers, we are facing the infrared waves, long waves, and if we go up the 780 nanometers, we will have a very dangerous radiation of the UV. Basically, every day we are exposed to that, and nowadays the doctors always recommend us use a protection to avoid to have skin cancer. So you can see the wave, the electromagnetic wave is huge and have good and bad things, like just simple things that we have in life. Light is something that is not visible, and it needs a kind of medium to make it possible to see it. We can use smoke, sand, and then it becomes visible. We see that is something happening, and we see as well a certain kind of direction of the light. So we make this invisible thing that is surrounding us visible. Because at the same time, to make possible that this light is going to be visible, we need surfaces. Basically, the light will hit. Yes, so basically the light is going to reflect from different kind of materials. And as an architect, we understand that the brighter or white the materials that we're using in the matte materials is going to help us to reflect the light inside of a building or even outside in a building as well. So dark colors and specular colors are something that we don't recommend it from the architectural point of view, because with darkness, you will need extremely high amount of light to make things visible. And if it is a specular material, you will have the reflections of the dots of the light that you are utilizing in the space. So it becomes an additional element that, as an architect, you don't want to have it in your architectural space. The sun is producing different kind of shadows. When I started working with ERCO, I had the possibility to talk to a very, very important lighting designer in Asia, Mr. Carol Mendel. And I started working as an architect in this company called the Light Factory. And he comes to me and he says, you have to be aware that the moment that we have light, we will have shadows. So we should not be afraid to create shadows. Part of the design that we are doing everywhere in different kind of projects is going to have shadows as well. So we should not be afraid of making them. There are different kind of shadows. One very sharp shadows is the sun. It's coming from the natural source that we have outside. So you can see outside, and then you can imagine it's the shadow that produced by that is extremely sharp, and it has a very strong contrast as well. Now, this can happen in the outdoor with buildings, or when we walk, or trees, everything that is outside. But the moment we go into these kind of spaces with artificial light, we have the opportunity to control the way the shadows are going to be. So we can have very sharp shadows, but we can create at the same time smoothness, that will create softness. It means, as a lighting designer, you have the possibility to influence the way the people are going to see the space, and the shadows are going to be part of it. Let's talk when we see that there is an influence, especially when we have light we are going to transform. We have to realize at the same time that why we are able to see that is because our eyes are able to see different kind of levels of light. So we will talk about now about the language of light. So as an architect, you need to help the other architects and as a lighting designer to support, to make sure that the projects that they're going to see in the night are going to be present, and they're going to make possible that the people outside recognize the spirit of this building. Talking about light means at the same time talking about a different dimension. When we are planning the buildings, we have a three-dimensional object. The light is going to add one more, and it's going to create spaces. But these spaces are basically for people, like you and me. So we have to illuminate the spaces in such a way that we feel comfortable. So that is basically the idea of creating fascinating, good quality of light for spaces so that people feel comfortable. So they can do their activities inside of the spaces, and at the same time, don't be glaring. And I'm sure, and I hope at the same time, that when you get out of this masterclass, you will look up and say, oh, yeah, this is a little bit glaring. And that is already part of the education that we're trying here to share with you. The sun is going to give to the geometrical shapes of architectural projects the idea of understanding what are the forms of it. It could be organic forms. Nowadays, organic architecture is very popular, but it could be as well, shapes like a box or completely something different. The point will be, as an architect, as a lighting designer, how are we going to make this building in the night visible, following the same design concepts? So changing this without making overloading in the amount of light. Always following the concept that less is more, always taking care of the way the buildings are going to be visible in the night. So you may have here a facade which is completely closed, there are not much windows, and for many lighting designers, the ideal I would say, playground to illuminate and work with reflections, especially because it's a white building. But what will happen if you have a building in this way? This is part of architecture as well. New materials are giving us, to the architect, the possibility to change the facade. And then we face the problem that we have reflection. How we're going to make the interpretation of this building based on this kind of used materials. The idea of making look the building in the night becomes a little bit of a challenge, and we can do it anyway. How we do it? We can utilize the reflections of the walls inside of the building to reflect it outside. And we have this effect. The shape of the building remains the same. The message, the spirit of the architect, what is going to be, how the building is going to be seen, is there. We are not going to manipulate it with light. When we are talking about light, especially artificial light, we need to make sure that, and you will see it, there is all over the world hundreds of different kind of products. This is something that you will continuously have the possibility to find. So it becomes a little bit difficult for us, the point to find how we're going to specify for different kind of projects, the different lighting tools that we need to use in projects. So it becomes more the solution and easy understanding how to create the different effects in the buildings. So it's going to be questioned first. What are the effects that I would like to achieve? Specifically in museums, we need to create, we need to understand the curator, we need to understand the heritage of the objects, what is the story behind that, and we have already an idea how this will be exposed, how this is going to be exhibited. After that, we can start looking for the lighting tools that will be needed to create this kind of effects. So keep in mind, when you're starting the design of a museum or in general any project, don't think first on the product that you will use it. Think about how you would like to see the building, to see the space. The slogan of our company is light and not luminance. Definitely, light will make things visible. We have to make it simple as possible. Vertical planes will help us to understand the shapes of the buildings. This is a beautiful example in Australia, where in the night, this board is going to be strong visible. Keeping in mind as well power consumption, energy, all the different characters that nowadays, characters and features nowadays, is a must. So we have to make sure that we provide lighting solutions which are going to be, I would say, beautiful, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we consume extremely low energy, because we cannot go on and on like this. Something must happen. And as a designer, we have the responsibility to take care about that. Now, this is a very sensitive, wow. So, at the concept, the beauty of this concept is that you can utilize this everywhere, in offices, illuminating the vertical planes. You can utilize this as well in museums, making some objects extremely valuable with the amount of light that you put on them. Or making as well, or telling a beautiful story, yeah? Together with the curator, with the people who are working in the museum, you can develop a story, and that will give you the specific hierarchy that you would need to create and design a museum. So you can translate this language into shop, yeah? Different kind of projects. It's always the same principle. It can be as well in libraries. Yesterday, we had a visitor here in our booth, and he doesn't have nothing to do with museums. he was talking about a library, and I explained to him that the principles of lighting, the language of light, are exactly the same. It doesn't matter what kind of projects you will do. And it was really a pleasure to see that he understood the whole thing. Designing with light creates magical spaces. Designing with light will highlight landscapes. Making the right utilization of lighting tools is magical. It's really something that rewards you, and at the end, you will be extremely happy to see how this space is looking. Because you are creating spaces for people, and the people should enjoy it. Even private houses, you can do it. It's not a problem at all. The same language, the same way of interpretation of the spaces. Indoor and outdoor. Community projects, different kind of projects, it's all the same. And of course, one thing that we have to keep in mind all the time is that make sure it's not glaring. That means disruption of the light sources that we see. We should make sure that they are not visible. To make sure that color temperature is going to be utilized in the right way to enhance all these monuments, national monuments and world heritage that we have, and transport this idea to different kind of projects. It could be a restaurant. It could be as well a facade of a building. Keep in mind, less is more. You don't have to fill the space with light. You have to fill the space in an intelligent way, always using what we call the perception of the eyes. We have seen that although is one kind of language of light, we are covering different kind of different kind of projects or range of projects, from work to retail, airports, anything you would like to have. You can use the same language. Now you will question yourself, he's mentioning all the time about the language of light, but what is in reality the language of light? And I would like to share what is this. We're talking about qualitative lighting design. That means the opposite of quantitative. That means putting less luminance instead of putting more luminance. Putting the luminance in an intelligent way and always keeping in mind what happens inside of that space. Qualitative lighting design offers you ambient lighting, general lighting. It could be, from our point of view, the perception of the space is much better through vertical planes. That means wall washing. You create accent, what we call focal flow, highlighting some objects in the space. Yeah, that is a key point as well in our museum. You can guide with different kind of hierarchy of amount of light. And last but not least, you can create a room with colors. Let's have a look up to these points. Remember, very simple. Ambient lighting, general lighting. Accent lighting or focal flow, highlighting specific objects that are very important in the space. And last but not least, make it a little bit of different integrating color of some effects. Now, I would like to show you how this really looks. This is just a visualization of a space, it's a gallery, and you can see here that we are using the vertical illumination of the walls. That means wall washing. Now, have a look the way it looks in reality. Suddenly, you are able to see that this stage is 4 meters high. And imagine this as an architect, as an interior designer, as an owner of a project, that you can feel the space inside of it. It makes like breathing in, it makes, wow. Now I can see how important is this space. When we talk about focal flow, we can highlight some objects in the space, depending on the important play with a hierarchy of different kind of lux levels. Lux is the unit that we measure the amount of light that is touching the objects. You can see we are now able to see this object here, and then at the same time we have here a kind of illumination. So the techniques behind are all different. Here we're using another beam angle, and here we're using, like it looks like a backlit of the painting, is using a frame. So that means you can play with the different kind of light inputs to create different kind of effects. And last but not least, the play of brilliance. So that means we are able to transform the space with colors. If I make you a little bit curious about it, take some time after this masterclass and visit our booth. There you can experience light, the same kind of interpretation of spaces. Now, from my side, I'm going to give you the stage to my colleague Kishore. He will talk to you about museum lighting.
Hello. Am I audible? I won't ask, am I visible? Okay. So my colleague Luis explained you language of light. Before that, Amit explained you or started with what is light. I'm going to be very specific to museums. It was generic, taking you through language of light. But the question then is, how do we illuminate museums and galleries as beautifully as we have shown in the reference images? And hence, this is a direct usage for the designer sitting here, gallery owners. But before I go into the lighting part of it, a quick reference to the considerations and complexities involved in museum lighting. Considerations are very generic. We all are more or less familiar that a museum, in a way, is a historical identity of a city or of a country. It can also be a cultural identity. You want to change it?
Sorry about this break, but presentation is half an hour more. After the presentation, I would really request all of you to visit our booth on your left-hand side, which is Light for Culture. Go around it, experience it in reality and what we're trying to tell you here. And if you're doing social media stories, please don't forget to tag us. Usually India is a tag, and co-lighting is a tag. Thank you.
Hello. It just made me sound better. Okay, so as I said, the reference here, a museum can be a landmark as a historical identity, or it can be a cultural identity. Museums or galleries are also space or place of expression. It can also be used to express your opinion for a subject matter. But museums sometimes can also be functional bridge. This is a real picture from Norway, where they wanted to construct a bridge across the river, but they also used it as a museum walk-through space. Now I move on to the subjects of complexities involved in a museum from lighting perspective. So I do not, of course, deal with conservation, but very specific to lighting. One of the first major criteria for a challenge that you face in a museum is the objects or the exhibits are of multiple sizes. They come in multiple shapes. And how do you take into consideration lighting scheme that can address the first complexity? The second is not so frequent in museums, but for sure in galleries, you have a frequency of change. The artwork displayed keeps changing continuously. How do you take it into account the lighting scheme that handles the flexibility required for change of artwork in the gallery? The wide range of color spectrum, every artist has his own choice of colors. And the second part is to do with conservation, where the sensitivity of every material depends on the type of material of the artwork, and that links me to conservation, subject that I can cover. How do you handle this part? The visitors to museums also are not of a fixed age band, right? It depends from 15 years or maybe even younger than them to an older person. So let's get into the solutions or recommended solutions from lighting perspective. Let's first address the how do you look into the requirement or the solution for handling complexity of multiple sizes and multiple shapes. To begin with, when you choose a luminaire, I'm getting into luminaire, you of course have to think of light, then luminaire, but in this case, the luminaires need, the selection of luminaires that you do need to be available in multiple sizes. Because a museum can have small artwork, large artwork. A museum can have a single height, can go to double height, and then can go to triple height. The whole idea is you do not want to deal with multiple brands, multiple products, because the height changes or the artwork size changes. Yeah. So you need to make sure that when you choose luminaires, they are available in multiple sizes. The next is more beams. One of the most critical requirements to illuminate exhibits in museum. As I mentioned, this takes care of multiple size and shapes, which means the tool you choose should have the maximum possible beams that can address maximum possible sizes and shapes. To give an example, in this case, there is a narrow spot on the right hand side of me, a spot beam and a flat beam. We are going to demonstrate to you the beam that it should look like, what I've shown you in the image. So that's the narrow spot on the right. You can see that the circle gets a little bigger and a little bigger. So that's a narrow spot and flat. We should then move on to further wider requirements for multiple artworks or large size artworks, in this case, white flood and extra white flood. So you can look towards the right side of me, right hand side wall mount elevation, and the left hand side. So you can clearly see the artworks are larger than the one in the front elevation, and the beam gets larger. So this is what we mean by possibility for you from the same set of tools to have multiple beams. One of my favorite beam option for multiple reasons, we can talk about it later. Something we refer as oval beam. In simpler terms, it's linear beam, which can address multiple artworks in single line. Yeah, so you can see a soft beam which is linear. Or the wall wash. So the wall wash is a beam option that we usually recommend when you're not sure of the artwork or the display frequency is very high. Then the entire wall becomes your canvas and you can use tens of them, smaller ones, or one large full wall size artwork. So wall washing I would also refer as a lazy option. Yeah, when you don't really want to apply your time and energy into designing a space, wall washing is a go-to option for you to not bother about what's the artwork size, frequencies change, etc. We'll display the wall wash option, which you already have seen in my colleague Louis's presentation. When you speak of wall wash, just bear in mind the uniformity matters, top to bottom, vertically and horizontally. An option called framing projection, where you really have the option to create an extreme dramatic accentuation. Sorry. Yeah, the one on the left hand side. As Amit mentioned, this looks like backlit. All in all, just a recap, apart from multiple luminar sizes, try and choose fixtures that have multiple beam options, maximum beam options. I'll try and showcase some of them again. So to just do a quick recap: narrow spot, spot, flood, framing, extra white flood, and white flood. So this, in a way, takes care of your multiple sizes, multiple shapes in an exhibit. This display change frequency also requires interchangeable lens, because when you have fixtures that you bought from a particular brand, then you need to have the flexibility to interchange the lenses between the fixture. So your particular type of beam changes to a different type of beam. So this allows you to address the requirement of multiple or frequent changes in your gallery show. Of course, more connectivity. So the options that you would want from a brand or a tool supplier to take care of a specific requirement from dimming perspective. In today's world, we have multiple dimming options, so the tool should cater to the project requirement from controls perspective. Now, when we were discussing with the Ministry of Culture team as to what are, apart from the challenges and apart from the knowledge on how to address these challenges, what are the ways that the designer, purchasers can look into upgrading the museum lighting here, right? So the typical conventional approach from a, I would say, purchase department is they get a data sheet which says very written data of a particular wattage, a 10 watt, will give you so much of light output, and some of you who are from purchase department must have faced that you'll have 100 companies who match that requirement. But then how do you filter them? So the next part that I'm going to share with you is more practical, day-to-day handling of filtering good versus bad, if I put it that way. But what are the criteria from lighting perspective? How do you evaluate? The very first thing that is a must, which we always recommend, is mock-ups. Because not all lights are same. They may be same, good or great on piece of paper, but without a mock-up on a white wall, not a concrete wall, not a black wall, but a white wall. White, while is a lighting friendly color, is also a revealing color. It reveals bad quality light. So we always recommend, make sure you have mock-ups on a white wall and choose or evaluate this criteria. Sorry, I missed the slide. So here, what we are trying to say, you can't buy a perfume from a catalog unless you are repeating the brand. If you're buying a new perfume, you need to smell it. You can't just read the content, the chemical content of a perfume and decide to buy. Reading a chemical content of a perfume is as equivalent to you reading a specification on a data sheet of wattage, lumen. It actually doesn't matter. Light is an experience, right? So hence the mock-up. And the broad criteria that you need to evaluate, which will enable you to upgrade your lighting or choose between A and B, are these 6 parameters. To begin with, more effectiveness, no center hotspot, no scallops around the hotspot, no color over angle, visual comfort, and uniform wall wash. I will elaborate on this. So what's effectiveness? For those who have dealt with light fixtures in your profile, when you say 10 watt fixture gives me a certain level of light output, what matters is this light output on the surface. What you design for, what client pays for, is not this. While of course they pay for the tool, but not about the LEDs, the output of LEDs. It's this. You design that I want a certain amount of light on this sculpture, and that's what you pay for. Hence, the comparisons or evaluation should not be at the source. I'm not saying don't do it, but don't stop there. The critical requirement is what gets delivered, and that's what we refer as effectiveness. It is immature for someone to start and stop your discussion at source level. So this is the LED, that's the wattage, and that's the lumen output. So what? What's getting delivered is what should be spoken about. Yeah? So that's about more effectiveness. And the conclusion is, same wattage of A and B doesn't mean same output. And if it's not the same output, it surely doesn't mean same delivered light, right? And hence, 10 watt of two brands, do not assume 10 watt of A and B will deliver same amount on the floor. Yeah, that's effectiveness. Then we speak about these three criteria for evaluation: center hotspot. Now, I'm sure you may have come across this situation as a visitor to a gallery, as a curator to your space, or an owner of your space. But you see, this is a kind of course, the center is supposed to be bright, but the gradient is supposed to be soft and smooth. This has a bright patch, and I see three circles, so it's definitely a hot spot. Now, our eyes are designed to go towards the bright spots. So within the artwork, an artist will never be happy if only the center of artwork is highlighted and the rest of the artwork is kind of not doing justice. So when you evaluate, now you can see, you can't find this out on a data sheet. You will have to do a mock-up on your blank wall, white wall to compare. The second criteria that you need to compare is multiple scallops. So the secondary spill around the center hotspot is what kind of dilutes or distracts appreciation of artwork. It shouldn't, while it shouldn't have hotspot, it should also not have multiple circles around it. Yeah. A very common issue, it is an inherent issue, I would say, of the design of the product. When you use a lens, when you drive your car, and you have a headlight with the LED and a lens, you see there is a yellow tinge around. On a street, for driving purpose, it doesn't matter. But when you're dealing with art, you don't want this yellow tinge around your beam. The color of the center and the edge should be same. This in technical terms is referred as color over angle. Yeah, there is a color when you move towards an angle. And let me show you some examples of good versus bad, because sometimes to really realize and appreciate good, you need to put bad next to it. So that's a good lighting, a soft beam around it, and you can see there's a hot spot and a sharp scallop around it, and 3 level layers of beam. This is not abnormal. This is actually, you can find this when you visit around with this space itself. With a lot of artworks being illuminated, you see sharp scallops and multiple beams. I want to demonstrate here A versus B for you to understand what I mean in live scenario. So I'm going to switch on 2 light fixtures and leave it to your understanding which one is good or which one is not so good. Yeah? And the reason we are comparing here is for you to relate, or for everything that I spoke about hotspot, about 3 circles, people with good eyes or good understanding of light, you can clearly see there is 1 circle here, 2nd here, and 3rd there. So 3 scallops. And if you notice closely, maybe not for the people on the far side of the audience, the edge of the beam is yellow. Of course, we try to get a fixture which has all 3 bad qualities. And when we speak of this, by the way, this is not a street side elliptical shop brand. If I may say, the comparison here is of 2 brands in the top 10 category worldwide. So I'm not saying something that is just bought off the shelf. It's top 10 brands, 2 of them. This being Urco from our company, and that's being non-Urco. So that's just a giving you a quick comparison. Now we speak of visual comfort. I cannot demonstrate this to you here, but you can later on visit the walkthrough on the right side. When we speak of a mock-up comparison from a project in India, then you see the ceiling here is silent. So as I mentioned a while back, when you are looking at the artwork, if something else is brighter than the artwork, your eyes will be drawn towards the bright point. I'm just being kind, not to call it glaring, but yeah, the eyes do get distracted towards a bright spot. And hence, this is not recommended. It's not something that you desire in a given space. You want light here with the light fixture as silent as possible. I wouldn't always say not visible, sometimes it does become visible, but as silent as possible. That's here. Also bear in mind, just a quick note, not just for museums, but any project that you do, when you see glare at the point, during mock-up, multiply it by number of fixture to make it worse, and multiply it by number of reflective glass all around. If it's a glass facade, your problem further gets multiplied. Yeah? And the last is uniformity. very specific to vertical illuminance. Bear in mind that when you deal with objects that are on the floor and it's bad quality, you may still escape. But if there's a bad quality light on the wall, including a wall wash, then you do not want something which is on the right side. We always say that when you do vertical illuminance with wall wash, either do it the best possible or don't do it. Just leave it with some other lighting scheme. That's an ideal wall wash. Not so ideal with dark spot in between and lower light levels at the bottom half. Or you may have a situation where there is first 1 feet dark and then uniform. So that was about quality of light. For conservation, broadly, while there are many criteria for consideration when you deal with the subject of conservation, but I will say from lighting perspective, I'm almost done, 5 more minutes. The last slide I would say, there are 3 things that you need to bear in mind when you deal with light from the perspective of conservation. Once we deal with subject of light, the very first slide of my colleague Louis said light is a form of energy. So when someone says to you that it's LEDs, LEDs do not have ultraviolet, LEDs don't have infrared. Correct statement. But if the statement is followed by saying, hence it won't damage, then it's a lie. Because what remains in between is still energy. If you want your artwork to be preserved forever, don't show them. Keep it in dark room, do not showcase. But that's of course not the job of a museum. And hence you are forced to illuminate, right? Which means you are forced to damage it. So do not expect a light source not to damage your artwork. We can minimize it. So my sharing it here is not to say that you can have a zero damage. It's only to share with you what are the criteria for you to make sure you minimize the damage. So first thing is when you make a selection of a lighting tool, the LEDs inside, you need to ask the question, what is the damage factor of your LED? Of course, someone can copy this data and put it in the data sheet, and you can't do anything about it. But there are tools available in the market where you can actually measure the damage factor of a given light source. So make sure that the damage factor of the source used is minimum. Yeah? Then, we don't need to really read the text here. I'll explain you very quickly. Because I said when you expose your artwork to light, it's going to damage. The damage is done by multiplication of amount of light and amount of time exposure. Right? The more you expose from time perspective, it's higher damage. The more amount of light is higher damage. So they explain to you whether you put on little light for 8 hours is equivalent to more light for 2 hours. Same damage. Yeah? The damage is multiplication of lux into hours, so lux hours. So you can reduce the exposure by having movement detectors. So when there is no one in the room, the lights goes off. You can introduce lux sensor to reduce the light levels. So this is about lux and time control. You can also, you need to ensure if your artwork that you're using in your museum is supposed to be very sensitive, then it cannot be at the entrance of a museum. For those who have not taken the tool, you may take it and you will see it in the brief by the team that we usually recommend, and that's how it's been practiced in museums around the world from lighting perspective, that when you enter the building, the reception is supposed to be brightest because you're coming from daylight. Then you go into zones where the first exhibit zone is the least sensitive material, metal and whatever else, modern paints, digital prints, not very sensitive. You can start with that and to the core of the building. By that time, your eyes have adapted to darkness. You move from daylight to reception to first zone, which is certain light level. And by the time you reach the center of the building or center of your space is where your conservation or conserved artwork is supposed to be exhibited. And that room is supposed to be black or black color wall, so you don't have competition. And very little light can still address the requirement of reading the artwork or enjoying the artwork. Yeah? So that number is 50 lux. I'm sure you can't read this here, but the 50 lux is a number followed by museums globally for the conservation purpose, keeping in mind that the rest of the room is no light. No light, so there is no competition. The contrast is still there. The 50 lux is good enough for an age band of 20 to 30, may not be good enough for someone aged 50 or 60, but it's a matter of choice, right? You want to damage the artwork or you want to allow everyone to appreciate it. But 50 lux is something that's kind of a thumb rule, and then you can define based on the artwork, because it's also about the color of the artwork. If it has poppy color, bright color, you can do it with 20 lux, maybe 10 lux. So 50 lux is in a way upper limit, but lower limit can be defined based on your own artwork that is inaccessible. We are done with our presentation. This slide is what we have showcased in the walkthrough on the right hand side. All these 5 types of gallery lighting, or possibilities of 5 types of gallery lighting, is actually live in action on the right side of those who have not yet taken the tour. And any questions? I'm not sure if we have time for questions, but yeah, those who can afford to sit longer, we are here. You can ask as many questions as you want. You can send around the mic and raise your hand.
Or the best place for the question could be our booth when you go and experience what you've created there. I hope the presentation was useful. Few take-home points. Human vision is horizontal. We see like this, we don't see like that. Therefore, verticals are important. Uniform glow on vertical is important. Contrast is important. Collaborative lighting design is critical. All that what you've heard here is demonstrated there. So I would really request you to please visit the booth, spend some time there. Our team is there to take you through. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.